People of Earth, give hope.
Give hope. We play Gig Hose.
Welcome to Gig Hose,
The good, the bad, and the funny
the inside stories of being a freelance club date musician.
in the 80s and the 90s.
I'm Willa,
I'm Marla.
and we are the Gig Hose. Okay, Marla, I think we should begin by explaining to our audience exactly what a club date is, because it may not be what they think.
That's for sure.
Okay. So it's not really about playing in a club, is it?
No, because there are specific dates, obviously, that, you know, our whole business is about, like, showing up on a particular day at a particular time. And
Right,
yeah,
but
they're
not in a
clubs.
club.
Not in clubs.
In a catering hall, in a corporate building.
Restaurants sometimes.
Right, and these are private events. These are weddings, bar mitzvahs.
Hotels. Yeah, that whole
So
spiel.
actually, it has nothing to do with clubs at all. But still, they call it club dates. Oh, and even the union calls it a club date, right?
And to this day, they're still called club dates.
That's right.
And in California, they're called casuals.
That's right.
Yes.
And I don't know why, because there's nothing casual about what we do with
That's for shit sure.
Okay. Anyway, today's episode is part one of The List. And would you explain the list for us, Marla?
Well, the list, yeah. I save everything from my career, and I came across this list of the musician's requirements for doing a wedding, a bar mitzvah, from down to what to wear and how
And was
to...
this from a particular club date office?
This was from a particular office, Stank Lane, it was
Stank
called.
Lane, yeah.
And
Stank
one of the
Lane.
musicians, and actually he was in contact with me before he passed, and he was surprised that I still had it. He didn't even have it.
Wow.
And I think I posted it on somewhere, and he was quite amused. And reading it now, it is quite amusing.
And horrifying.
It's very horrifying.
All right. So why don't you read off number one, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, well, the name of the list was called, as I said, Musicians' Requirements.
Yeah.
Yeah, show business is so glamorous. Girls must wear black formal or sequin dresses to the knee
To the knee.
or full-length gown.
Okay, let's take that. Let's dissect that one. First of all, my first objection is girls, right?
Yeah, girls.
Girls. Not, if it was men, it would be men, but not women, girls. Second of all, the guys get to wear pants, right? Now, audience, you know, just imagine Marla and I are both keyboard players, so we have a lot of equipment, right? We're schlepping a lot of equipment upstairs through elevators, and then we got to lean over a lot to set it up. We got to plug in wires and all that stuff. And if you're wearing a gown, A, you could trip over it, and B, you know, you got maybe your cleavage is showing so the guys could like check out your cleavage, or maybe your butt in the gown when you're leaning over. It's just not conducive, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes they did cut us some slack, but you have to be in like a tuxedo. But you still want to also feel feminine. I mean, you didn't have to always wear a gown. I mean...
No, and well, at this point, I
This time, yeah.
very rarely wear a gown. But I always said, this is what I always said, because audience, you have to understand that when Marla and I began, there were very few female musicians. Most of the women that were working in this line of work were lead singers. And there was a whole level of misogyny around that. You had to be young, you had to be pretty, big boobs were like, they wouldn't say it, but they kind of wanted that. So there were
Everybody wants that.
Yeah, right, everyone wants that. So really, I mean, there were like only a handful of us, at least where we work, which is the New York, you know, the tri-state area. But
Do you remember a keyboard player named Paula Berard and something?
No, what about her?
No, she started before we did. And,
Oh, really?
Yeah, and she worked with her husband.
Wow, because I thought we were in the vanguard, you know.
Well, we were definitely in the beginning. I mean, I just want to add that when I tried to break in the very beginning, they actually put their hand up to my face and, no, we can't have women in the band because the bride will be jealous.
The bride will be jealous, yes, of us, yes. So I always said, if I'm playing keyboard, if I'm sitting somewhere with my legs spread, I am not wearing a dress.
What about when sometimes they made you stand and play keyboard?
Well, yeah.
And that And if you were wearing a dress, because I've done this a lot.
Did you trip over it with your heels?
No, but I was in high heels,
Right.
and if you're playing keyboard and you're pushing the sustain pedal, you're leaning on your left leg, and
I'm quite aware.
and you have, as you are, but people out there,
Yes.
and you actually end up hurting like the foot that you're putting all your weight on,
And your hip. Yeah, there's a
whole
lot
thing.
of occupational hazards to this
Absolutely,
gig. I know.
absolutely. And you also had to wear dark clothing, because I remember wanting to wear I had like an orange blazer over like a sequin top, and it's like, oh no, you can't do that.
No, you can't. Even brown is not okay. It's got audience. It has to be black. Every club date musician, half their wardrobe is black.
You should see my closet.
Mine too. Mine too.
Black clothes matter.
Yeah. Black. Oh, God. Okay, don't hate us for that. Okay.
It's just a joke.
It's just a joke. Okay. Number 2, must wear makeup, including mascara, lipstick, and eyeshadow. Eyeshadow.
I know.
Wow.
Eyeshadow. What color do we have to wear?
What does it say before entering?
Before entering. Yeah,
place of employment.
well, that's like a thing, because like you're wheeling your equipment, and like your makeup will start to like
Run.
melt off anyway.
Yeah, right. Oh, wait, there's more. Arrange hair as if you are going out for a formal party. Wow. Now, I guarantee the men didn't have to worry about that thing, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Although, can we talk about the amount of guys who wore toupees?
Well, you got to do what you got to do.
I suppose. So yeah, you're sweating. It's summer. You're going through the garbage-ridden back alley of the place, whatever it is, right? And you're schlepping. How many pounds of gear you think we have on our hand trucks there?
Well, in the beginning, it was a lot, because remember how heavy keyboards used to be.
Oh God, my first one was 90 pounds.
Yeah, I couldn't lift the Fender Rhodes. I think we talked about this in another episode. I mean, only if you were in a band could you actually play Fender Rhodes. Even a guy couldn't really lift that himself.
Some of them had the B3s, the Hammond B3s, the organs. They weighed hundreds of pounds.
It's insane.
I know. I remember if your air conditioning went out in your car on the way to the gig, you were really screwed, because then,
Then you come and stink, too.
Well, that too, but I remember it happened to me once, and I had the windows open, and so my hair was like completely screwed when I got there too.
I once did a DJ gig in Macy's in Roosevelt Field, and the woman that was in charge, it was through some other office. She was such a bitch. I mean, I'm wearing a designer top, but it's sleeveless, and I'm setting up. I just wheeled my equipment from the men's department all the way to the top floor of the women's whatever, And I'm sitting down to put my shoes on, and she's like, I get a bad report that I was wearing something sleeveless. It's like, what am I supposed to wear? My jacket and sweat? And I mean, the gig hadn't started yet.
Oh, and that's a whole other subset, because when you're doing the religious Jewish stuff, you have to keep your shoulders covered if you're a woman.
Sometimes your whole head, right? I mean, didn't somebody have to hide behind a curtain doing a gig?
Elisa, yeah.
Lisa.
That's a famous... All right, we'll tell this story. Yeah. So if you're playing a really super religious party, they won't even let women be in the band. And certainly they won't let you sing because, again, it tempts the men to lustful thoughts, to carnal thoughts.
The sound of a sweet female voice.
Yes, it tempts the men, so you can't sing.
We're not talking about songs like Hot Stuff.
Yeah, anything. It's anything. But definitely Hot Stuff. So, well, there's a woman who's a very great bass player, and she works a lot for the Jewish offices. And she was on a gig, but I guess one of the rabbis at the gig went nuts to see a woman on the band, just on the bandstand, period. So he came running up to the bandstand, flipping out. So they put a screen around her on the bandstand, and she had to sit behind the screen, and the whole rest of the night, the band leader would be leaning around the screen, satisfaction, whatever it was. She had to play.
That's pretty funny. She's behind the screen, but the guy needs his satisfaction.
Yeah, right.
Singing the song.
Ironic. I know. Arrange hair.
Arrange hair, yeah. So, I mean, this list is from many decades ago. Obviously, we're talking about the 80s
this has to be
90s.
the 80s. Yeah, right.
The
okay.
80s, yeah.
Okay, what's number 3? You want to read number 3?
Well, number 3 and number 2 are about...
All
this
right.
is like a big part of what we used to do about calling in for your schedule. You imagine you're a musician, you finish the weekend, and it's like your whole week is ahead of you, and you don't even know like what you're doing next weekend. You have to call in on Tuesdays between 11 and 4 and get the list of the jobs of what you're doing.
Right, because back then, this is actually before there were DJs. So if somebody had a party and they wanted music, they could only hire live musicians. So all these offices made crap tons of money because they'd have,
The whole landscape of all the
Right,
jobs.
it was
I mean,
only
DJs
them.
existed, but not for weddings, and like not for private. They were in clubs.
Right. So they had all these musicians, and they all knew the same repertoire. And so you just knew that you were working on the weekend, and you would have to wait for them to tell you on Tuesday where and when and with who, right? Which is crazy when you think of it now. So your life was not your own. We kind of like indentured servants, right?
Right. You just don't know. And to reiterate, like in those days, you worked like 5 jobs. You could work Friday night, all day Saturday, all day Sunday,
right.
like an animal.
Every time.
Which
Every
was,
time.
it's great to be working, but like, and then you would call on Thursday to actually get your directions and
Yes.
the names of the places and the times.
Because there were no cell phones.
No
and-
cell phones, no GPS.
Right.
It was a whole other world. You had to sit there and write them down, and you were instructed on this list to write them down on a. They actually told you the size of the index
Right,
card.
that's
to write
right.
on. A 4x6-inch index card and save them for future use.
Yes. Oh, so if you played at the same catering hall again, the agent wouldn't have to waste his time giving you the directions again, right?
Right.
Okay. So this is classic because although they said use the index cards, usually I was writing them down on the back of an envelope.
Right.
Right.
And throwing them away.
And then you're driving in the car in the dark, and you have this envelope where you wrote down the side, and then you turn it around, and there's a little arrow at the bottom, but you're driving in the dark, and so you turn on the light in the car while you're driving in the traffic. And then I remember once, and this is before ATMs too, I was driving through Manhattan to get to a gig in Jersey, and I realized that I don't have any cash with me to get over the bridge, to get over the George Washington Bridge. I'm in Harlem, right? And I had to find it. I had to find a bank, and I had to
because
find
there was no Easy Pass then.
no Easy Pass, and I had to find a bank before 3 p.m. because then the bank would close, and it was Friday night, right? So I'm driving around Harlem,
Looking for a bank.
looking for a bank before 3 o'clock, and it slowed me down terrifically too. It was so stressful. Oh God, yeah, things are so much easier now. We have GPS, we have Easy Pass, we have cell phones.
Yeah.
It just wasn't like that at all.
We have AAA.
Right. And so I'm gonna tell this story about directions. So one of the guys we work for, that we still work for, who's a sweetheart, but he's got a thick accent. So it was outside of Philly, this gig, and he said the directions he gave us was, he said, go over the Mort Whitman Bridge, Mort Whitman Bridge, and then the name of the place is 12 Scissors, right? So we couldn't find a Mort Whitman Bridge, but we figured out it must be the Walt Whitman Bridge, right? So we go over the Walt Whitman Bridge, and then he didn't really give us make a right on this street or that. He goes, just go past the toll booth for a mile and it'll, So we get to the toll booth and we say to the guy, do you happen to know where the 12 Scissors is? He goes, you mean 12 Caesars? Oh yeah, that must be it, So sometimes you really there were other times when, I know Larry forgot the directions one time, and you just sort of it was magic. You just
had to figure it out.
somehow.
Well,
Yeah.
even when you're using GPS, sometimes it can be, I just want to add this. This is a more recent GPS story. But I was going to Jersey, to Red Bank for a gig. And
Wait, she put air quotes. Why did you put air quotes about?
because anyway, and it kept telling us to go to this highway, the Magenta Parkway. And I was like, what? I never heard of this. I'm looking it up on Google,
Right.
and it was telling us to merge onto Parkway.
Oh, Magenta Parkway was merged onto Parkway.
Yeah,
Oh,
but it
that's
kept
good.
saying Magenta Parkway,
Right.
and
Oh,
so
that's good. So even technology fails you sometimes.
Yes,
I
even
know.
technology. I
I
just
know.
thought I'd throw that in.
Okay, so that's getting directions. And I'll tell you another story that was so great. So this one particular, and I think it was Flankstain, actually.
Flankstain, yes.
Flankstain. So the Flankstain Orchestra. we were doing a demo, oh God, that's a whole other thing, but we'll get into that. We're doing a demo. All these guys that only do weddings are there. And, it's like at least $100 an hour back then.
The studio.
Yeah, the
Yes.
studio. And
We didn't have home studios then.
no, you couldn't. And they all stopped the session dead because they all had to call in and get their directions, right? And they all acted like they were I don't know,
Movie
Steve
stars?
Gadd. Yeah, like the greatest musicians. They were, I have gigs, and they, okay, I'm going to go to the Temple Bethel in Woodmere, okay.
And then Tuesday I'm at Temple Miserable.
Oh, yeah, well, that's a whole other
That's a whole other thing.
Okay. All right, what's next?
Well, they do have like a paragraph of what men had to do, so I.
Oh, they do? It's coming
They
here.
must shave, so I
Oh.
thought that was nice. At least they had to shave. We didn't
that
have
is
to
the
do
next
that,
one.
unless we were wearing sleeveless gowns, I guess.
Right, well, that's here. Men must wear black tuxedo, black bow tie, white wingtip shirt, no ruffles.
Because ruffles have ridges.
Right, and you don't want to look like Ricky Ricardo. Black, what?
Black socks and
Socks.
shine shoes.
Oh, wow.
Bow tie and jacket must be worn when entering and leaving the premises. And there are some people that never took their tuxedo to the dry cleaner.
Oh, God.
And you could smell them
Stanky.
coming.
So stanky. Yes, someone comes to mind immediately. Hair must be
Yes.
neatly groomed,
No long messy
no
hair.
long messy hair.
Even though the Beatles were very big.
Must be clean shaven. Well, my band never would have been able to work in that office because almost everyone had a beard in the 80s.
Well, that's why worked out better.
Yeah.
The next one is pretty interesting.
Okay.
Because there's
Oh, yeah,
a lot
this is
of
good. This
a
is
lot
good.
of trauma involved with the next one. You must be present no later than 1/2 hour before your start time. And how many people, are walking in at 5:02 or 5 after?
Which number are you looking at?
that's-
Number 6. Yeah, right. You must
Yeah.
be present. Right.
And one of the most important things about what we do, you're doing somebody's wedding. It's the most important day at that moment in their life, and you cannot be late. That's like not half. It's like 90% is showing up on time. Like if you miss somebody's ceremony and there's no music and they're walking down the aisle, it's a dead silence. So forget it.
Okay, now there's a bunch of stories around that, around getting to the gig on time.
Yeah.
Because it is an art and a science. It's an art and a science. Because, after you've done these gigs for decades like we have, you kind of have a sense of where the places are. A lot of times you've played them before. And
How long it takes to get there.
And you know the outside. And now, of course, the GPS will tell you your, approximate.
Right. They even
Right.
tell you traffic now, but there was
Right.
no
No.
such thing then.
Yes, there was you could drive right into an accident and be stuck.
And there was always traffic even then.
Yeah, right. Can we quote Jerry Seinfeld? This is New York. Everyone's going everywhere all the time. But I remember one particular time, but
No one ever beats the Van Wyck.
Oh, that
that's
too. I know.
We'll
So
go
great.
there.
So great. One particular time, and there's a particular window around the holiday gigs because the traffic is just so intense to try and get from anywhere into Manhattan. Right?
Yeah, or even around the block takes 40 minutes in Manhattan. Christmas.
I had one of those. I'll get to that. So my drummer and I, Pat, we were going to take the 59th Street Bridge because it's another unwritten rule amongst club date musicians. Don't pay the toll if you don't have to, right? We were always trying to figure out the way to get to the gig without having to go over
Midtown Tunnel.
Yeah, without the tunnel, without having to go over a bridge where you have to pay the toll. So we thought we had left ourselves plenty of time, but we are sitting on the entrance to the entrance of the lower roadway of the 59th Street Bridge.
Oh, we've all been there.
Yeah. And there's this big display, it's a billboard, but it's also a display, and it's got a clock, right? It's got an analog clock, and the second hands are ticking, right?
Right.
And the wheels are turning. And we're sitting there and stopped at traffic watching the minutes tick by, right? And we had to play at the Harvard Club, I believe, which is like 55th Street, maybe, Madison Avenue.
Right, not far in.
No, but you got to get over the bridge.
Absolutely.
And we're not moving, and we're just watching the time ticking by. And, And there's this terrible, stressful feeling one has when you know, like, you're going to be late and, like, the mind game that you're doing in your head. Well, I'm not late yet. I'm not late yet. I'm not late yet. But you're doing the calculations. Okay, if I get over the bridge by this time, and then it's like each block is going to take me that much time. And then when I get there, I got to load my gear in, and then I got to park the car. But I'm not late yet. But we got to that point, and we looked at each other, and we said,
We're late.
We're late. Right. So it's a 7-piece job, right? We get there. We finally get there. And he's the drummer, and I'm the keyboard player who's playing bass. We get there for the 7-piece job. There's only the band leader, Cy, who's playing his clarinet, and Lou, the conga player, right? Those are the only people that are there. And it's like already 15 minutes into the gig, right? That's all. And he looks at us like wanting to kill us. It's a terrible, terrible, stressful feeling. I mean, you leave all this time for yourself. And in the end, you're late anyway.
I know. I had a double, I remember, and it was in Long Island. I had a lead job at night, and I was so exhausted. I said, I'll just lay down for a minute.
Oh,
you know?
no.
Yeah, I fell asleep, and I fell asleep. It was like the job started at 9. It was 8:30. I can't believe how fast I actually got there. I got there in like half hour or 40 minutes. I mean,
Where was it?
oh, I don't remember where in Jersey, but
I was in Jersey.
but I got there and like, yeah, Jersey. Oh no, the deep dark depths of Jersey. And I get there and I end up starting. It was only 15 minutes late, but I was the leader, and like they
Yeah.
obviously see, and of course you have to give some money back, you know.
Right,
But it was
yeah.
like, you know, now I never take a nap unless I have like my clock on my iPhone turned on, you know, my alarm, because it can happen.
I got to tell that story. Okay, and I'm going to try and be as discreet as possible. So I had this job for the Nobleman. You ever work for the Nobleman?
Oh no.
Okay. And there's a thing about being the keyboard player. Often we start a couple of hours before the rest of the band. I think I did tell a story about that last week.
Yes.
Because we have to play the ceremony of the cocktail hour first.
It's set up in 3 places.
That's right. So I say to the band leader, are you sure it's only 4 hours? Because it's a wedding at a temple in Woodmere. You know, you sure? He goes, yeah, I'm sure. I'm like, really? You sure? Yeah, I'm sure. So the morning of the gig, I think, supposedly I started at 2. So I'm in bed with my husband. It's 10:30. And we are engaging in some activity, right? We're engaging in some activity, and the phone rings. And he's like, don't answer it. And I'm like, no, I got to answer it. I pick up the phone. It's the guy. I forgot, and I was wrong, and excuse me, but I had some oral surgery, so I wasn't really thinking about it, but actually you do start at noon, not 2.
Oy.
So I had to leave my husband very unhappy. I was out of the house in 12 minutes. 12 minutes. I jumped out of bed. I threw on some makeup, and I was out of the door. And I did make it. I think I
Wow.
got there. At like 10 minutes to 12. The things we do.
Just 2 weeks ago, I got called at 12:30 to start at 1:30 on the same day.
Right, but
Luckily,
that's-
it was in the same borough.
Yeah, but that's different. You know, I kept
Right.
asking and asking.
Right. Well, it's not, the good thing is it wasn't your fault if
Right.
you were late. You know.
That's true. It's worse if it's your fault.
So number 7 is
Yeah.
don't talk to the guests,
Oh, God, I love
hosts, etc. Don't touch the food. we're like lepers.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like it's like one hand, once you're out on stage, you're like, you know, you looked up to, you're on the stage, oh, the musicians, you know, but
Right.
really it's like you have to like kind of disappear when you're on a break. It's like, no, you can't sit on that couch near the fireplace. You have to go hide in that closet over there.
Right. What is it? Oh, don't touch the food.
Don't touch the food.
And-
Don't talk to the guests.
And the ancillary, don't hang out at the bar.
soda is okay. Well, you know, I could burp during, you know, like
No
what a
alcoholic
feeling.
beverages, which nobody paid attention to that rule.
Yeah, until they outlawed having them in certain places, you know.
Right.
Oh, you're in the band? No, you can only have a soda.
Yeah, right. So my favorite story about that is don't touch the food. You know, and I just want to go into...
Smorgasbord humiliations.
Because it's another thing specifically about being the keyboard player. It's a certain kind of a torture.
Well, we're working the longest, first of all.
and
6
then,
hours, 6.5 hours.
Yeah, and then so
Setting up an hour before, breaking down an hour after, driving an hour before, an hour. So that's like 9 hours if they don't feed you.
that's right. That's right. And the other torture, which is you're hungry, right? And all the other guys in the band have come in after you. They've set up in the other room, the main room where the gig is going to actually happen. And now they waltz into the cocktail hour, and they're grazing at the smorgasbord, right? They're grazing, and I'm sitting there and playing and watching them graze,
And smelling the food.
looking at the food. I scope. Do you have a strategy for what you're going to eat on the 2-minute break you might be able to get?
No.
I have a strategy. I find the sushi table.
Well, that's my favorite.
There you go. Because you don't need silverware.
But
right?
I don't think they had sushi in those days, though.
I think they did. They always did. Yeah.
In the 80s in the beginning, it came, and now they always
You might
have
be
it.
right.
Yeah.
You might be right
I
about
don't
that. But
remember
sushi's good. It's self-contained. You can eat it with chopsticks or even your fingers if you have to.
that. Right.
But anyway,
But there's always a big line at the sushi table.
yeah, that's true. You got to plan your breaks strategically. For when there's no. I used to do that. I used to watch the smorgasbords table.
Okay, the line is down. I'll take a break now.
Yeah, I did. The
Yeah.
pasta table. There was no one at the pasta table. I would run over there. But
That's what you got to do.
I'm at this catering hall in bumfuck, New Jersey. Pardon me, Jerseyites.
We love you, Jersey.
Not really. Who else has a highway system where the sign for the turn comes after the turn?
Chris Christie. Chris Crispy.
Anyway, so one respite can be if you can't get away from the keyboard, because some agents don't want you to take a break at all at the cocktail hour. They come by with pass-around trays. So you can maybe grab something off the pass-around tray, like you're playing with one hand and you grab. They're tiny.
That's if the waiters actually acknowledge that, you're
You live.
deserving of one.
Or
because
you
sometimes
live.
they say, excuse me.
So true. They don't want to touch. Yeah, but some are very nice.
Some
it
are
depends.
a lot of nice.
Anyway, this guy's coming by with a tray of mini thingies, right? There's a mini quiche is one of them. So I motion to him. He comes to me. I grab the mini quiche. I take a bite. The caterer comes over and he goes, put that back. And I'm like, really? He goes, put that back. I go, okay, and I put the half-eaten quiche back. But really,
How ridiculous.
I know. I think it's true. I think people have this vision of us as like we're treated well because we're musicians, but really, as far as
Lower than the wait staff because they feed them in the beginning of their shift. And
that's right, and they know them. And who are we? We're outsiders. We're interlopers.
Right, interlopers.
We're other.
And then they try to actually make the bride and groom they have an offer. Oh, we could feed the band. It's only $50, or it's the same as what you're.
And then they don't feed us.
Or they're not going to do that. Or and then they charge you full price, and then they give you club date sandwiches.
Club date sandwich. What is your description of the club date sandwich? We might have gone over this, but.
Well, it bears repeating, It's like stale bread,
Yes.
2 different kinds of bread,
yeah.
horrible roast beef and potato chips.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, we did. Soggy potato chips.
Soggy potato chips.
Yeah, yeah. And they always feed you last so that you
You have no time to eat it. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I'm getting hungry. Seriously.
I know. All right. So here's the next one. Cooperate with the band leader and smile for the guests. Always smile on the bandstand and dance.
When on stage, create excitement.
Ooh, excitement.
Look lively and make the people feel like you're having a good time no matter how bad you may feel.
And that's a particular thing about doing this work. If you work in an office and you have a bad day or something bad happens to you, you can call
Can you
in-
imagine working in an office and smiling and dancing at your desk?
Yeah, but I mean, if you have a personal crisis or something, or just you're having a bad day, you could always call in sick, right? But you really can't call in sick to this because what we do is, although people have much made fun of and maligned the wedding singer and wedding musicians, what we do is highly, highly specialized. And it's very difficult to get a replacement.
And there are no sick days because you don't get paid if you don't show up. So the
Right.
you know, you have a special
Incentive
to want to be there. I have a little story.
Oh,
It's
goody.
just about a bass player who I love very much.
Who shall remain nameless.
No, I really love him. P.S. are his initials, and he once had I don't know what he had. He had Lyme disease or something where he had to have an intravenous something going on.
Yeah.
And he went to the gig. He showed up. He wasn't feeling that great. And he's standing on stage with the IV bottle attached to his arm. And then, you know, but he wanted to do the gig, and he actually did a great job, you know. But
I got one. Oh, God.
we put him in the back, of course.
Oh, yeah. So, you know, I also had a rock band that played in the clubs, but I know we're talking about wedding gigs, but I have to include
Sure.
this one. So we had a gig at a club. It's quartet, and the bass player called, and he said, I can't make and it was like 3 hours before the gig, right? And I mean, this is even more specialized, even harder to find a sub when it's a set band and it's just rock material, you know. I really can't come. I have this stomach problem, and I can't make it. And my brother's like, "Oh, come on, you know, it's rock and roll, and if you
my
don't
God.
do it,
I think I know where this is going.
yeah, if
Ooh.
you don't do it, we can't do the gig."
So he went.
And he came. And it was, you know, it was one of those gigs where there's like 3 people at the bar and 5 people in the audience, you know, because it was like not a club we usually played at. So halfway through the gig, it hits him, right? And he must excuse himself and run to the men's room, which is pretty close to the stage, right? So I took over bass on the left hand, and I'm playing, and from the men's room is coming, "Oh."
You could hear it.
Oh, yeah. He's groaning. "Oh."
Oh, God.
Oh, poor guy. Poor guy.
Well, at least he didn't, like, let it go on stage.
Well,
It could have been worse.
I know, but it was pretty bad. Pretty bad.
Yes, we have to show up. I got sick pay one time. I was doing a piano bar at a place called Top of the Sixes.
Oh, I remember that.
I was there for 10 years. I couldn't believe it. One time I took off and I said, you know, you paid me an extra. Oh, we gave you sick pay. Or, well, it was vacation pay.
Oh,
And I was, like, amazed. I mean, I actually had a locker in this place.
right.
Wow. You know, that's how steady
is
a gig
amazing.
it was. And it was very, very rare for a piano player, you know. So.
sure. Wow.
But,
yeah.
But, you know, we have to show up. Otherwise
yeah.
we don't
mean,
get paid.
You know, I think we've both been on gigs when one of the musicians is just playing and sobbing, right, while they're playing, because, like, their girlfriend left them or whatever, you know.
Oh, I had to play when my cat died, and
Yeah.
the host was like, "Her cat died? That fucking bitch." I'm sorry. Brooklyn. It was a
Yeah.
Brooklyn law
Yeah.
school.
Yeah, I remember, I think I broke up with somebody, and I was just like, you know, this side of suicidal, you know, and playing some song like My Heart Will Go On or something like that, you know, some love song. And I just remember, like, all I could think was, let the set end, let the set end, let the set end. And as soon as the set ended, I ran into the ladies' room. I was sobbing, and, you know, and then I had to fix my makeup, you know. And the lead singer came in, and she was like, "What's happening?" You know, but this, you can't not go to the gig.
Show business. Show must go on.
Yeah, I know. All right. Bring your own microphone, wire, stand, and song list to the job. Memorize the lyrics. It's so hard to read this thing because it was...
Well, I'll read it. Music stands and cheat sheets are not permitted. Yeah, can
Right,
you imagine that
right.
today?
Yeah.
People have their phones and their iPads, me included, you know, because
Yeah.
we have these great apps now. But let me just add something about that.
Please.
There were like magazines. There was one in particular that I subscribed to, was Song Hits Magazine, and they had like printed out lyrics of all. I mean, some songs didn't make it, but it was like a thing, and I would cut them out, paste them onto index cards. I mean, it
Wow.
was like a thing,
Yeah,
you know.
right.
And like the fact that, I mean, for a while we were just Googling the lyrics and then just making a PDF, but now there are apps that just find it for you. I mean, that new app that I use,
Oh, yeah.
Songbook Pro, they should give me like some money for saying this. But
We should make them a sponsor.
we should make them a sponsor because instantly call up like the chords and the lyrics. Sometimes they're not always right. You know, it's sort of like the real book.
Okay, they're not paying us yet. We shouldn't go into.
Okay, tune in next week when we're getting paid for this.
Hopefully. Yeah, in those days, we all had a giant, super heavy satchel full of written
music.
out charts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'd have them spread out over the music stand.
In addition to what else you had to bring.
Right, that. Yeah, it was nuts how many charts. I mean, the iPad is such a boon.
And then finding it and like, oh, no, it's in that book, and then turning the pages. And,
Right.
I mean,
It's true. You know, technology always drives reality, right? I
Yes.
mean, I think these jobs in general are so much more fast-paced than they used to be. Just for that, the fact that we have iPads and we can get to the next song, get to the next song, get to whatever it is.
but yet in those days, it was like looked down on by reading the lyrics. Because, I mean, I don't know, maybe there weren't as many songs that we had to like constantly learn. There were a couple of new ones every week that came
Right,
out, and
right.
you learn them, and everybody learned them. But now
Right.
there could be, I mean, with the advent of DJs, that people can have anything
Whatever they want.
at any time,
It's
and
so
the
true.
bands have to kind of like try and keep pace with that. Because sometimes you'll learn now like 10 songs for each job.
I have totally done that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they let you know like 2 days before.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
They're doing the finals on Friday night.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, by the way, do you happen to know?
I was planning on sleeping tonight. you don't want me to be falling asleep in the ceremony.
I do
Oh, I
know.
have a funny ceremony story.
Oh,
I just wanna
goody.
add.
All right,
And
let's
it has
hear it.
something to do with technology. It's terrible. I waited for iPhone to come out on Sprint, and I finally had it. And like I had a message, and I'm like waiting in a ceremony. Just somebody walked down the aisle, and I don't know how to like manipulate the voicemail, and I accidentally turned the voicemail on. It was on speakerphone in the middle of somebody's
no.
ceremony.
Oh, my God.
And it was this woman, Gail, I think her name, and she had the most annoying nasally voice. Hi, Marla. I just
During the ceremony?
yeah, and like I like freaked out. I quickly shut it off, and like people kind of noticed, but like they still paid me. They didn't complain. They didn't yell at me. 'Cause,
Really?
like, I was amazed. I was like mortified. I said, "Oh my
Wow.
God, I felt terrible."
Well, you
But-
remember the gig I talked about last week that ended up with me and the super giant Argentinian men at 3
Yes.
o'clock in the morning?
Yes.
So how that gig began is I was playing at the Rockwood Blech Jewish Center. You know the one. I was playing the wedding ceremony, and the parking valets were on shortwave radios or something. So that came through my amp somehow. The
yeah.
bride is walking down the aisle, put the Ferrari in lane 3, and everyone turns
around and looks at
me.
you. That
And I'm
happened
like,
to me too.
Yeah, and I have my hands up in the air. What am I going to do?
They all know to look at us. I mean, that happened as a DJ with a wireless mic. It was the police radio, and
Right.
everybody turns around and it's like, and then you just throw your hands.
It's like
not
shortwave
me.
or something. I don't know, but
Well,
yeah,
they changed the bandwidth, and then the
Right.
police only have this bandwidth.
right.
And
But
remember,
why
there was
it
a
came
thing.
in through my amp, I have no idea.
No, right, but I'm just saying it can happen, and yeah, it's
Oh, yeah.
mortifying.
Yeah,
it's
with-
not my fault.
So that gig did not begin well, and it did not end well.
Oh, right, because it was that gig.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
that
they were.
gig.
You're lucky that you made it home alive.
God, I'm so lucky. Yeah. Okay, well, I think that's a good place to leave it. So I'm Willa,
I'm Marla,
and we want to say, may your gigs be close to home.
and may your GPS never falter.
That's right. And until next week, we are
The
Gig Hoes.
Thanks for listening. The Gig Hose podcast is produced and recorded by Marla Joe and Willa Basson, also known as The Gig Hose. Thanks to Doodle for the opening voiceover.